Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the joint meeting of the Cumberland Town Council and the Cumberland School Committee for Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. I'm going to open this meeting at 6:01, and for the record, all council members are in attendance. Madam Chair.
Yes, good evening. Thank you very much. I would like to call to order the Cumberland Town Council and School Committee joint meeting tonight, February 3rd, 2026 at 6:01 p.m. Ms. Feather and Ms. Smith are absent this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we're going to go right to our first item on the agenda. We have item 2. We have a discussion. We have a pre-budget consultation and a 3-year forecasting with the school committee pursuant to the requirements of Rhode Island General Law 16-2-21 through 16-2-21.3. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you. I think we're on. If we can get the slides up, please, that'd be great. I'll start things off with some remarks and then turn it over to Mr. McGrath, talk about the landscape going forward this year and the next couple of years. The first slide I want to talk about, something put out by RIDE every year. It's a metric that talks about what we spend per student and how we perform academically. And RIDE likes to look at that in terms of district comparisons. There are 4 quadrants. Obviously, the bottom going from left to right, you can see that's how much you spend per child. As you know, we're the lowest, and the higher ones you can see on the far right. And then going from the bottom to the top, that's how well you do with student achievement. You want to be in the upper left quadrant. RIDE calls that the quadrant of success. Cumberland is on the far left of that quadrant. That just shows you we're really efficient at what we do and we're quite competitive. Keep in mind also, we're competitive with districts that are smaller and less diverse than we are. So it's quite a credit to everyone in the town that we're doing what we're doing with the funds we have. So that's really a credit to everyone. So I want you to have that. And that's put out every year by RIDE. It is good info for you guys to have to look at, what you're getting for your money, right? So next slide, please. Enrollment always drives state aid, as you know. This past year, the state bumped up state aid with a 4% base on all the towns. And then if towns had more enrollment, they got more money. Only about 4 or 5 towns gained enrollment. Smithfield, Cranston, Block Island gained 1 more student. Cumberland, we had 31 more students. So that really is a driver. We, as you'll see, are north of $2 million for new state aid for next year, and that's a really big deal. The good news here is this slide shows you the next 10 years from NESDEC. People often wonder how accurate is NESDEC. They've been within 2% last several years. If you look at the math there, the next 2 years, they forecast 125 more students next year, and that's good news as far as funding goes. If 31 students plus a base bump got us 2 million change, what's 125 going to get us? Even if they're off by 2%, that's 5 kids. It's still 120. Call it 100 kids. It's still a really good problem to have, right? I would say one more thing in terms of enrollment. It's a good problem to have, but also it's a challenge. As you know, we've done 4 renovation additions, now building a new BF. Many of the reno additions are getting quite full. Still room at community, plenty of room at BF once BF opens up. We'll truly need the BF opening with those 175 extra seats. So that's really, really good news to have. High school has plenty of room. High school back in the heyday around 1972, Mr. Mutter. I don't know if that was when you were at the high school, but I think there were the 1700s-ish. So at one point doing double sessions in the high school. So we have plenty of room at the high school. So having said that, that's a peek at the enrollment and a peek at the just the forecast. Now, Mr. McGrath, talk about fund balance, and then I'll go into the projections from you.
Good evening. So one of the topics that we always discuss is the fund balance. So I put together this little spreadsheet that kind of shows the fund balance history throughout since 2021 for the school department side. So as you can see, at the end of fiscal 21, the school department had a high water mark of just over $6 million in fund balance. And then since that time, there's been deficits use of that fund balance. And then, so over the last a couple of years, FY24, we were asked to put a chunk of money in fund balance to kind of knock down that, over $5.5 million fund balance that we we had. So FY25 ended up with a $2.3 million in fund balance usage. The driver of that was the school contract settlement, really drove that use of fund balance. The FY20, the current fiscal year that we're in, we're trending, the use of fund balance is 1.2. We're trending above that number. The main driver behind that is the lack of breakage we're experiencing. We had a really good hiring year, so we weren't able to achieve that breakage number of $700,000 like we have seen previously. And also teachers aren't retiring in the numbers that they were previously, so we're not seeing that backfill with lower step teachers. So we weren't able to achieve that, and that's the worst case scenario. We do anticipate bringing that to the committee and kind of carving out some different areas to help bring that down, but I wanted to kind of just present the worst case. Yeah, so after all that would leave us with the $1.2 million number that's indicated up there. If we want to just jump into our experience with our health insurance, and I think the mayor will also discuss this. So a little brief history, the school department's with WB Health, self-funded. We have a great relationship with WB Health. I actually serve on the executive board with them. And what we've been able to do is self-funded really helps to hold down your premium increases. If you're in the private market, you might see 20s and 15 to 20% right now. It's really tough out there for commercial health insurance. So the nice thing about being self-funded is we have a fund balance that lives at WB Health. Over the last couple of years, we've kind of, there was a zero back in the 22-23 year, and then over the last couple of years, we've kind of picked away at that to kind of help increase. What we're estimating right now is unfortunately a 9.9% increase, and what really drives that is up top you'll see the number of large claims, right? So your health insurance is really driven by your large claims. So right now the school department's experiencing 16 large claims of an average of $142,000. So that's really, that causes major problems because there's what's called stop loss insurance in that pool, and if you hit the stop loss, then the insurances kick in. Well, ours is so broad and spread out, we're not hitting the stop loss on those, so it's really digging into the fund balance. So that's what's kind of making us look at this, and we met with Scott Matthew, who is a consultant with WB Health along with the town, and we're looking at these numbers, and yes, to see the 16 is a very poor year. That's a lot of claims to see, so. We'll jump into budget drivers, kind of what we're seeing going into this budget season. So like Dr. Thornton did indicate, we are seeing an increase in state aid of $1.2 million. I'm sorry, $2.1 million. But that's great. And then what we see on the other side is the expense side. So CTA contracts, top step increase of 4% this year, along with the step increases I'm right now estimating as $2.2 million just out of the gate. And then the health insurance we discussed could be, $700,000, $800,000 right there. And then obviously there's a fund balance hole that exists that we've been using that one-time revenue to kind of limp the budget, to fund the budget going forward. So those are the big pieces that we're seeing. I know the mayor will also chime in on those as well. And then I just wanted to kind of quickly just give a breakdown of what the school department budget looks like. Just as percentages, so those top numbers, when you look at the personnel, employee benefits, transportation, added district tuitions, and utilities, that makes up 93% of our budget right there. So, the teachers in the classrooms, and then, running the buildings, and then paying the added district tuitions, and getting the kids to the buildings is 93% of what we do. And then 7% is the rest of the stuff. So not a lot of money for the rest of the items on there. But that's kind of what the school department consists of. That's all I had. I don't know if Dr. Thornton, you had anything else?
No, just happy to answer any questions now or after the mayor's completed.
Thank you. Before we go to the mayor, does anyone have any questions of the school committee at this point? We can always go back for more questions after the Madam Chair. Anyone in your? Oh, I'm sorry. Counselor Bullitt.
Yep. So the stop loss is on a per person basis? And when does stop loss kick in?
I believe it's 250. So each individual community in WB Health can choose what the first level of stop loss is. I believe Cumberland's a 250. And then WB Health picks up the difference between whatever that level is, and then I think they go up to the 500. And then after that, there's a pool stop loss insurance that picks it up after that. So we're just falling right underneath that kind of, and we did have discussions about looking at that, maybe, adjusting that. That's kind of, it's a calculation to kind of see what the best optimal position would be in. So.
Yep. And if you go back to the pie chart slide, Sarah, if you don't mind. So the expenses that are listed there, which of those tend to be your better? Which ones tend to be the most impactful for changes on the budget? So I know often transportation and pension are some of those details, but are we anticipating kind of moving forward, those expense categories will be, or what will they be without guessing?
Traditionally the school department budget usually tends to fall, most departments fall in this kind of same pattern. You'll see the 80% is your personnel services, and then your transportation tends to be in that 6-7 range. So what I normally see is the bottom numbers, those 1%, start to shrink and they kind of move up as you kind of squeeze in the budget in different places. But,
I'll just add, as far as volatility, electricity is extremely volatile right now, and they're months behind in their billing. So it's very unsettling. We're not getting bills yet for the winter, and it's been really volatile what we're getting.
And are those rates fixed, even though the use may vary?
Yeah, so they are fixed. We have a consultant that goes out and purchases the supply side, and then we also are in the solar credit, which has been a great. But the problem I'm seeing is Rhode Island Energy billing with the solar credits. There's been some struggles. I know, Melinda, you've seen that as well. The credits applied in different places, and I know it's been in the headlines too as well. So it's just making it difficult for me to kind of actually figure out. I can't just take the usage divided by 12 and say that's my monthly expense. It's just not that simple right now. So we're trying to work through that with Rhode Island Energy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions here? Any questions with the school committee?
Any questions on school? No,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Mutter.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council, Madam Chair, members of the school committee, school administration. So I guess we didn't email you some of our presentation, but let's go with the 3-year forecast. So we will email this to you in a minute, but it's going to be put on the screen. So we're obligated to put a 3-year projection, revenues and expenses, which are difficult to see there, but so in some of these assumptions, are you able to email it to them? You can do it at the same time. I mean, I can, so effectively what we've done, especially in FY27, is just make some assumptions. We kept some revenues pretty stable. We did add 3% onto the property tax revenue. We did use the school housing aid numbers that have been provided, projections from Hilltop Securities. On that side, we used the state aid projection for education on the school department side. So when you actually add all that together, which would effectively be a 4% levy, in adding, as the superintendent and Mr. McGrath stated, we have a projected $1 million in healthcare that associated with the rates at the school side and the town side. We have the first principal payment on school construction. So when you add all those up, and we have a slide that's going to show that, when you have a 4% levy, that represents about $3 million in additional dollars, and you have $1 million in healthcare, which will bring it down to $2 million. You have $1.1 million in debt service payment. You can do the math. That's going to cut it down to $9 million. And as Mr. McGrath stated, so when the school department is using somewhere close to $2 million in surplus or fund balance to balance the budget, and you don't have it anymore, and the state provides $2 million plus in revenue effectively on the budget, that's a wash. That $2 million is replacing revenue that you can no longer use. So, and on the town side, we've used revenue stabilization plus, appropriation from the general fund balance. So what we have projected, or at least in 27, is on both sides, put a structurally balanced budget with no use of any fund balances in there. And when you do that with a 4% levy, you don't cover the existing costs that you have. By our projections, I think it was somewhat, and remember, when you add 3% to the town side, certainly some of them are not going to be 3%, some are going to be less, something's going to be, but if you just blanket it out at 3%, you add for pension and OPEB, and you just go through the 30,000-foot view, we have a problem. You have school department has gone from $5.6 million of fund balance to under 1.3. Healthcare fund balance has gone from 1.6 to 580. The town has had to use, the difference in budgeting for fund balance and actually using it in years past. We budgeted for it and didn't use it. Well, we've been budgeting for it and using it on both sides. And I always say that there aren't both sides. There's just one side, right? So, but on both departments, if you will, we've been using fund balance. And you have to remember, when you use fund balance, you're not going to a financial institution and taking it out of the bank. It's not cash. Your fund balance is the difference between your assets and your liabilities. So if you look at our tax anticipation note borrowing, that number is going up every year. And that's because we're using these fund balances to balance the budget, but we are not going down there and withdrawing that cash. So when you see that the tax anticipation note number going higher, you can rightfully assume that's the reason why. But at this point in time, unless there's a change in policy, and even if there was, it's probably not a good idea with the school department looking at somewhere around $1 million, $1.2 million in fund balance to use it again. So I would imagine that, and so we projected that as well. I would imagine that the FY27 budget would not use, any of the fund balance. So we projected the same, whether or not we actually do it, we're going to have to see the impacts of that. But clearly you want to have a structurally balanced budget in which you are not using one-time revenues to balance it. Now, I know I'm bouncing around, but when it gets to 5 or 6 million, you probably should use some of it, right? I mean, the only way you got to that fund balance was your revenues exceeded your expenses, and we've taxed residents for that. So there's an appropriate use, but it's gone from 5.5, 5.6 to 1.2 in 2 fiscal years. And so, that needs to stop. So the long and short of it there on that slide is that when you add up, so this is just so everyone is aware, and I'm not representing that the ordinance that we put in front of you for FY27, of course, we're going to go through that, but trash collection is going to go up. Things are going to go up, right? So if you just projected those as a 3% increase, and you tax at the maximum levy, you're going to fall short of balancing this budget with no extra money, with no increased appropriation to the school department. Just from the rough numbers, if you wanted to have a structurally balanced budget, if you were not using any fund balances to balance the budget, that's what we are looking at right now. So we've included, and we'll send it to you, going over the 4% with the use, one of the qualifying conditions is debt service, and we do meet that qualification this year. So that would be an avenue to consider. And the 3% will not be a factor because the 3% is based on the rate. It is a reval year, so the rate is not going to go up. But the reality is, generally speaking, no one really cares what the rate is. They care what the bill So, but the rate, because valuations are going to go up, the rate's going to go down. So the 3% rate cap is not going to be in play in FY '27. So, I think that, so, and then we do incorporate the ordinance that speaks to the 3% cap and the 4% levy. I can tell you that we're still waiting for final, it's very close on the audit, but, and so none of this is as linear as I'm making it sound, because by my quick calculations, and it's not final yet, but first quarter collection rate that we have always relied upon, that number came in significantly lower than it has in the past. So when we get to our talking about the levy worksheet, there's going to be, that may be interesting, but we've always been somewhere in the vicinity. We peaked at over 50% and have been running at about 49%. And by my math, and this is not a final, this is in a draft form right now, but by my math shows 47.62 last year. So on the flip side of that, that means there's more money to collect in 2026, the latter half of it here. So, I don't want to get into that. I love to talk about that. We'll talk about that later. But in any event, that it does appear when you that wasn't as high as expected, which influences the finish line as of June 30th. But it does provide extra revenue in the following year. So this is not going to be an easy budget year. And so all I'm really saying this year is, and probably speaking to the school department and the school committee, is that if you do decide to approve a budget that asks for anything over than zero, that's going to require some action from this body that could include going over a 4% levy. And I want to say that on February 2nd, 3rd of 2026 instead of later on in the year, as I have done in the past. So I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any questions from the council on this? Madam Chair, anyone from the
Any
school committee?
Questions from the school committee? Just one question for clarification. What is the ideal fund balance per our policy for percentage?
Two to 4%.
2 to 4%, okay.
Yep.
And what is 2 to 4% to equate in dollars?
I believe it's a 1.3 on the low side. And high side is
It's like 1.5 to almost $3 million, somewhere in
Yeah.
that range, depending on the expenses of the given year that is calculated on.
And right now we're at 1.2 adjusted?
Worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario, okay, thank you. That's the only
So
question.
that may require you to amend your policy. I don't know if there's a policy police, but, but
as our attorney says, they can always violate their own policy. They're the school committee.
understood.
Any other questions from the school committee?
The only thing, Mr. President.
Of course.
So, and because the school committee at some point in time is going to have to amend their FY '26 budget.
Mhm.
Because and when the school committee does amend that budget, then we are, I've always said it's not a question of if we're going to amend the budget. We're always going to amend the budget as we get closer to the levy. But as the school committee is going to need to do that prior to the budget amendment that the town is going to present, that needs to be voted on prior to the second meeting in April, which is when the town, passes the tax levy. So we just want to make sure. So, I mean, like right now, we're operating under a draft financial statement for FY '25 and then projecting that the fund balance that the school department is going to use would be X. And so we're subtracting that and coming up with somewhat shy of $1.3 million. So, I mean, in effect, you wouldn't really need to amend your policy until the financials are done for June 30th, 2026. So, but just so I just want everybody to be on the same page. And tonight, you know, I know it really tonight is all about the numbers, but I always have to say that, you know, the stuff that's behind the numbers, the academic improvements and the academic proficiency is something for us to be proud of. And so, so I don't want, even though it is a discussion about the numbers, we should not lose sight of what's behind those numbers, in which we, you know, have fully been supportive of those efforts, and they are very impressive, at least in my mind. They have been impressive, and it didn't happen overnight, but it can go down the other way overnight. So I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor, I just have a question, and I know this is preliminary. It gets us thinking of what we're looking at, and but I just wondered if you had any idea, anything in the state budget coming this year that would ease any of this? Are we looking at any increased aid anywhere, or maybe if Phil would know anything that on the school side that they're, other than what's documented here?
On the school side, I can say there's always a chance they can add more to the governor's budget. They don't usually go under it. This year, when you look at the other towns, many have lost a great deal of money. Providence is down $2 million. SK, $500,000. There's a chance they could do more to let all the boats kind of rise, and we'd probably rise with that. But as of last week, I asked that question, and no one's talking about that yet. But many, many towns have gotten less aid. In the past years, they had what's called stabilization money to kind of keep them in the game. Now, less enrollment equals less money. So there's a chance.
We'll take the chance.
See, you know, I think we both, you know, we knew that we had a fund balance, and to parcel it out over time with the school construction was the plan. You have to remember that the approved budget for the school department last year was used $1.2 million of fund balance. If that's closer to 2 million, that's a big number, right? That's 800,000 that we did not figure was in the plan. And then I think Mr. McGrath showed the healthcare. When you have, you know, a fund balance that when we went to WB that had 1.6 in the school department and is now down to 500 and something, both those numbers on the fund balance side are going the wrong way, right? When you put those two together, that could be $2 million. So that $2 million of state aid, instead of replacing fund balance completely, could have been, you know, so, you know, people have to understand that, you know, we can have a plan, but in the real world, things can happen that change that plan. And I fully understand that some of those are outside our control. But as the people who enact the legislation and approve the budgets, they have to know that there are implications to those real world challenges. So, and those are the drivers that are going to that are going to influence FY27. So I don't see any other revenues coming in from the state. I mean, matter of fact, our increase of $2.1 million on the state side was, you know, thank God, right? I mean, that comparatively speaking, we are one of the few communities in which enrollment is not going down, right? And as I have said multiple times, deeply appreciative of all the hard work that is happening at the school department, and the numbers bear that out. But we are definitely, you know, we are at the crossroads in FY27. We are definitely there. Perhaps we may have been there earlier had it not been for COVID and some other factors that happened, but we are here now for sure.
Thank you, Mayor. Anyone else before we move on?
Yep. If I may. Thank you. So just looking at that rate increase slide there, so what is the previous rate increase is 3%. What are we anticipating the rate increase will be for this new fiscal year or the current fiscal year?
For the health insurance one, the one you're looking at now? Yeah, so the recommended from the broker was 9.9 based on the claims yeah, so that below that bottom line is what the recommendation is right now. We have options to kind of look at the dental fund balance and some other things to maybe reduce that rate.
Yep.
But with the concern with those 16 claims, it's really dwindled down that fund balance in that reserve, and that's what was causing the recommendation of the 9.9 to try and quell that issue.
That's amazing. Thanks. And then Mayor, as it relates to school housing aid, do we know what the reimbursement is? I don't need to know the number right now. Is it, I think last year it was a bit of a surprise that it was a little lower.
So that was in FY '25. We think FY '26, we actually, I'm almost hesitant to say it, but
Don't say, I don't need the number. I just, is it known versus?
we believe that as much as it is humanly possible to know, we think that FY '26 might be actually higher than we have. There may be one positive caveat in there. So we believe, but, and then the other numbers we have substantiated pretty well. You know, would I bet my life on it? No. Do I feel pretty good about it? Yes. So those numbers are included. So, yeah, that's, we think those are, we're pretty confident that those are coming in, that the year that you speak of is the year of FY '25.
And we're in 26 now. Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Thank you.
And so I can add, so, you know, we buffered that, you recall, I mean, we buffered that with putting some fund balance in a debt service fund. And, kind of like in retrospect, we lowered. So we've done these, we've done these things, if you will, to mitigate, the tax rate, to support the school system. I mean, I don't even know if we included in FY '27, but last year, but this year, I should say, we upfront paid the last master lease payment, those two $5 million master leases. We made the last payments from a capital projects fund to then increase the maintenance effort on the school department side. So it was our plan to put that money back. So in FY '27, so those two master lease payments were, roughly $275,000 a piece, so $550,000. And so we were going to pay ourselves back. It was one of the other moves. We've had some, we've had some creative moves to try to do the best we can and still keep the rate compliant with, state and town regulations. But the reality is that, we're out of them. We have used, and like I say, I'm a big fan of using them. I think that any way we can get to mitigate the impact and still support initiatives inside the town that are beneficial, we should do that. And, I'm still looking for some, but let's just say that we're running out of those options right now.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Just one question or
course.
comment for the school department. I know in the past, when the budget was delivered, it included some identification of core and non-core expenses. So obligations like maybe facilities versus salary. I don't know if you still project it that way, where we can see how it's related to the funding formula, the town's obligation. I think it would be helpful if we could at least get a 30,000-foot view of that.
Yeah, I mean,
budget.
the pie chart slide with those breakdowns, that's real high level, those kind of breakdowns. I can drive that. I can produce it any way you want. If you wanted to connect with me, we can kind of look at what you're after. Yeah,
Can do. Yeah,
Sure.
thank you.
thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else on item 2? You're good as well, Madam Chair, again? Just wanted to make sure there's no further discussion before I move on.
Just, yeah.
Good evening. So I know that a lot of these numbers are kind of scary to look at, but one thing that I believe that we've tried to do to be creative on the school committee end is we've worked with the high school to try to bring enrollment back. And one way that we've done that is we've transitioned to block scheduling to try to incentivize kids to get seniors if they're performing well, which obviously, as you saw, our test scores are rising, enrollments are building back up. And this is our first year we're going to roll out like a block scheduling. It's going to be involve internships and stuff to that nature. And where the goal is to bring more students back into the school department, which would then alleviate us losing money out of our top number to pay these students to go to other districts and bring that money back to us. So hopefully that will add a positive moving forward in next year. And we'll see that next year, I believe. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. B. Ms. Polio.
How many students leave to go to other districts?
Right now, what's the current count on that?
At the high school level, the high school level or the high school level, I believe it's only 20 students leaving the district. I'd have to double check that number. I can't remember off the top of my head. I know the charter school numbers more than I know the high school numbers off the top of my head.
And how would block scheduling incentivize those 20 students to return? I understand that there's an opportunity for internship, which could certainly be to an advantage, but the schools they are attending, do they offer block scheduling or do they not?
Some schools do, but our schedule is more than just block scheduling. Think of time being the constant. We went to high school. We all went 4 years, right? Now time's the variable. One child may go 4 years and take an extra class every year in the schedule, the extra AP class. One student may go 4 years, but junior year, we have A day, B day. On B day, he'll shadow a dentist because he wants to go to dental school. One student may go to an auto shop on the A day and then take English and math on the B day. Some students may want to come to school late because they have to take care of someone at home. It's flexible and it's student-centered. So now once kids pick what they want to do, we staff it based on student need. So you may need less art, more history. It depends what the kids select. As far as the mentorships, we're still building that, and we'll see, how many kids want to go out to internships, mentorships, that kind of thing. And we have staff supporting that. So it's more than just block scheduling. It's really a flexible schedule. We actually met with RIDE on this. RIDE's very supportive because the new high school regs talk about supporting kids where they are and moving them along. So it's not just the classic student wants to go to say an automotive experience. It's that, but it's also kids that want to maybe take more high-level classes in their 4 years and have a more impressive transcript. So we're thinking kids will like it because they make it what they want it to be.
Is block scheduling offered at most districts statewide? Not many districts?
It really
Curious.
depends. There are all kinds. There's 4x4, there's A, B, all kinds of flavors. But the big difference with ours, it's not just block scheduling, it's a flexible schedule for kids. It's block scheduling with a flexible component to it. That's the big difference.
Got it. And as it relates to incentivizing students to come to Cumberland schools, I know there are a number of pathways that allow students to enrich their experience. Are we anticipating an increase in enrollment that way?
I think we will. Right now, I believe we have 7 pathways. I couldn't list them for you right now, but we have almost 100 students coming from Pawtucket and Woonsocket into Cumberland, and we see that increasing. And also, I would tell you, there's probably movement afoot with some legal action to increase the dollar amount per child that comes also. So that's one of our indicators that'll go up as far as tuition's in. That line should go up in our budget.
Thank you.
Also, I would add, in terms of money out for like BVP, that has been going down historically. Last year, fourth quarter, we projected, I think, 30 less students, and that came in. We're down to what, 2.6 now?
Yeah, 299 students.
Yeah. The high water mark was over $4 million, as you recall. It started off, as you recall, back in like 2010 with $129,000. Went over 4 million, and now we're down in the mid twos.
Thank you, Counselor.
Mr. President, just one, so I know we had some discussion about it, but so the use of the fund balance inside the school department budget, the extra this year, that some of that is attributable to breakage that did not occur. So in the FY '27 budget, are you projected to budget
Yeah.
less in the?
I think we'd have to. Right now, what's happening is as towns lose enrollment, they're laying off teachers. We're hiring. So we're getting people. So it's really hard to forecast breakage when we know, we're going to fill these jobs. But yes, you won't see a $700,000 number from us to the school committee. It'll be much lower than that, much lower.
Yeah, I only mentioned that because what we don't want to have happen is, have us in a situation where there's no fund and now we're in a deficit and now we're in that, in that process of, removing the deficit, if you will. So, so that's another reason why, we need to have that budget amendment prior so that, everybody knows what the score is. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Just one more question.
Of course,
Sorry.
Counselor Bowler.
Lots of good information. As it relates to the flexible scheduling, is there a potential for cost savings? Because if students are not in the classroom because they're at internships,
Right now, in our current iteration, it wasn't a savings because we still want teachers to support the students where they are, as far as going out there on the job sites, that kind of thing. So we haven't forecast any reductions. I think right now, I had a meeting today, we might have one reduction just from a program standpoint, but overall, as we're gaining kids and the kids have to get supported still, we wouldn't see a decrease in staffing.
thank you.
And we will add to the school committee agenda, discussion and action regarding budget and fund balance, so we can get that done.
Thank you. Again, any other discussion on item 2? Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you for all the information. We're going to go down to the next item. It's on the agenda, school committee's new change order policy. I know we wanted to have a discussion, but I understand that's been rectified. So if there's no any discussion, I will move down to the next item on the agenda.
I have a question, if I
Of
may.
course.
What was the evidence to warrant a need to develop a policy?
So, sorry, go Dr. Thornton.
A policy or the,
Well, it says new change order policy, so there must have been some evidence to drive it. Maybe it was a
Sure.
regulation, or maybe it was
yeah, I would just say,
a piece of
going
evidence.
back to the, I think we've been doing buildings now for like 4 years. And in the building committee, we realized pretty early on that we sometimes get these very small amounts of money, $3,000, $2,000. And it's really kind of clunky and stops the project if we're going to have to convene a meeting of the building committee and the school committee for a $2,000 or $3,000 item. So going back several years now, the building committee and school committee passed a motion, right, to authorize me to be able to move forward with 25K or less. I had some hoops to go through. First, if I had an item for a widget, I would speak to 2 individuals on the building committee and get their consensus. They said, yes, we'd move forward and buy the widget. And then the next meeting of the building committee would be on their agenda, and school board, the same thing, next agenda. So it was really out of just necessity. We don't do it or haven't done it all the time, make it a handful each year. But the one they tackled last week was something for this summer at North Cumberland Middle School. It's an elevator with a widget you have to get for $4,000, a different one. And you have to order it now to have it come in on time next summer. So it's always just a lot of things, a lot of moving parts here. But that was the mindset, just to keep the projects moving along.
But it was enacted because of some dispute or disagreement. It was revised recently.
On the agenda a few meetings back, we had it on to renew it. Each year I had a yearly authorization from like the January 1st, December 31st, something like that. And the year was ending. So we were trying to originally get it reauthorized. At first blush, the committee wanted to just have those come to the committee first. The first idea was, if at all possible, have a meeting of the school committee. They couldn't have a meeting, then you could, probably go forward. But I think originally the committee didn't approve that. They wanted to just have it come to the committee. But then that was reconsidered and they approved the concept we had for the past couple of years.
Okay.
I think this ties into Counselor Bolio's point, having watched both meetings that dealt with this issue. I really appreciated the comments from Mr. Bacon about the risks. And the first meeting where we weren't able to see his expertise, it very much felt like Ms. Smith was trying to solve a problem that did not exist, and that there were a lot of questions where everyone on the committee that was present and able to vote stated that they trusted the existing process but continued to vote anyway. And you're elected, you're allowed to vote however you want. But if Ms. Smith decides to increase bureaucracy and slow down projects and add costs, I will not be voting to raise taxes on the people of Cumberland for someone else's political theater. So please make sure going forward that you don't put us in that position, because I will not be supporting it.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else on item B here, school committee's new change order? No further discussion on my side. Yours, Madam Chairman, any further discussion?
Discussion. Mr. Dean? You could turn the top on. Tap it? No.
Have you spoken to Ms. Smith about this? Well, why would you, talking of political theater, why would you engage in political theater here if you haven't
This is
talked to
not
Mrs.
political
Smith?
theater. This is me watching every single person on the committee look like they thought they shouldn't vote for it, but vote for it anyway. And it was a dangerous thing to do. We cannot slow down projects that are desperately needed and drive up costs. So no, I have not spoken to her. I watched as a member of the public and as a member of this council.
Maybe you should speak with Mrs. Smith and you would have had your answer. Maybe we should not worry about how we vote.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor.
I wasn't gonna speak to it, but, clearly I made commentary during the public comment portion of the last council agenda. So I'm not really sure what the impetus was, to change the policy. I know that the makeup of the building committee, I'm the only representative from actually town staff on that building committee. So there's members of the public and a majority members of the school administration. And so, just for me, and I said it that night, I never represented it, certainly myself, as perfect. And so, and if there was something or that caused some concern or some trouble, then, we want to know about it, right? But I hadn't heard any. So, and just to add another, meeting, which I'm not sure, like you passed a change order at your last meeting that never went to the building committee. I don't know if that has to come back in front of the building committee. It was always, my understanding that the building committee would vote first and then bring it to the school committee. And look, if there's something that you think is concerning or that is well within your purview, and you're elected to do so. The fact of the matter is I hadn't heard any. And so, when you have people who are coming there off hours and putting in that time, and all those elementary school projects have come out, in my opinion, very well. And I think overall, I've said it multiple times. I mean, you know, is Cumberland perfect? No, you know, we're never going to be perfect. There's a pretty good thing here happening in Cumberland. There really is. And I know that we can dwell on the things that are not perfect, and we should always try to be better. But don't lose sight of the fact that you have a good thing going here, and that it's not carved in stone that it will remain, or to take it for granted that it's always going to be that way. I'm just telling you, like I say, been around for a long time. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes not a good thing, right? But we have a good thing going here, and people are putting in effort. If there is an issue, and I think, Mr. Dean, you just kind of spoke to that. Did you speak to, Ms. Smith? But I'm the chair of that building committee. No one spoke to me. No one spoke to me. And I am not beyond reproach. So it's like, look, could I have, could there be, absolutely. And so, but in the spirit of fair play, just let me know. I mean, and the reality is, I know for me, if you wanted to take over all the change orders and all the approvals, I'd be good with that. I just, I would be good with that. So I don't want to make an issue of it because I think, like I say, let's focus on the fact that that things are pretty good here, and that in many respects, when you have people from other communities come here or from the state, they extol some of the things that are happening here. So that's good. And it would be in our best interest, if we focused on those, but not give up on the things that we could tweak a little bit to be a little bit better. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Dean. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. James.
So not to go down the road, I didn't think anything was wrong. I'm a junior member of the committee. I've never had to vote on this previously. I was sitting there listening to the discussion. Ms. Smith brought up some issues that she had. The only thing I did was come up with a more adept verbiage for what they were trying to do. The rest of the committee seemed to approve of what was happening, veteran members and a few junior members. And for the first time, I voted with the rest of, not the first time, I vote to adjourn a lot with them. But I voted with, I thought, my God, kumbaya, we're getting along. And it wasn't until I think a week later, where the next day after the council meeting, people started texting me saying, did you see the council meeting last night? The mayor went after you guys. I'm like, the mayor went after us. I looked on the agenda. There was nothing on the agenda about school committee conversation about that. So then I went back and watched the meeting. I was like, wow, I thought we were all getting along. And then we went down a different road. But again, it was Ms. Smith who drove that conversation. I was just a passenger on the bus and thought I was doing what the rest of the committee wanted to do. There was no animosity. I had no, again, as I said in the follow-up meeting, that's a standard practice. It's a small dollar amount change orders is a standard practice. But, again, I don't want to get into any kind of a confrontation with the school board or the mayor's office about construction of the new school. Just thought I was going along to get along. Thank you.
Well, my only response to that, if I was going after anyone, I apologize, and that I can do a lot better than that if I'm going after someone. So thanks.
All right, good.
And it's rectified and we can move forward
Yeah,
and have wonderful schools here in Cumberland with everyone's help. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Okay, again, no further discussion. I'm moving down now. We're at item C on our agenda. We have sidewalk snow clearing around the student walking distance.
Do you want to start with town council?
If you wanted to start, I think we're more kind of on the outside unless someone has more information on this. There was nothing on the, as far as paperwork to follow up on, so please.
Anyone from the school committee have any discussion on sidewalk snow clearing and student walking distance? Okay.
So that was my suggestion to put it on the agenda. It has the potential to be a budget item. Last year, almost at the same time, it was several weeks before this giant storm that we had that I asked that it be put on. It was after the smaller storm. And after last year, when that little girl was hit by a car in Woonsocket because of the unplowed sidewalks there was a question about whose responsibility it was in Woonsocket. And we all had a discussion via text, and I think maybe we discussed it at one of the meetings. I'm not sure, but I know it was via text and email. And we said this is something we have to address. We have a 2-mile walking distance for the high school, and I think it's a half mile for the elementary schools.
7.5 and 1.5 for the middle.
1.5, so 3/4 of a mile for elementary schools and 1.5 for middle schools, and we mandate that those students walk those distances. There are several schools that don't have a lot of walkers because the roads have been deemed unsafe. And I believe Nate Whipple Highway is one of those schools. I mean, my children walked because we lived on a back road going to North Cullen Middle School. They walked, but nobody else really was walking to North Cullen because the road there has no sidewalks. Effectively, now there are many roads that have no sidewalks. I know there's been an effort to clear the sidewalks, both the community effort, and I believe there was the town workers are out trying to clear the sidewalks, and there was some contractors out trying to clear some sidewalks, and that is that's a great start. But I think for several days we had hundreds of kids walking to these elementary schools, high school, middle schools, virtually on the street. So Menon Road in the first day or so wasn't even clear to the white lines. So I think it was just something that we needed it obviously not going to get solved tonight, but discuss and start the discussion. I reached out to Warwick, and Warwick has an ordinance that that they enforce, and Woonsocket the same. They have an ordinance that the homeowners do it. So possibly not a budget item, but I'm not sure how we want to tackle that problem.
Thank you. I did, I know one of our neighbors, Pawtucket, I looked on theirs, and they do have a similar ordinance. But with theirs, it's within 12 hours. And I think with the storm we had, especially with some of our older residents, trying to clear it in 12 hours is almost impossible because everybody who does that job is out clearing their normal job. So I don't think I didn't ask if they handed out any tickets this time. And that's done by their building code. It's not done by their highway department. So I also know that there is a bill in the Senate, 2042, is asking the state to assume all sidewalk plowing on state roads. And that was put in by similar towns like we are, more rural. I believe it was Burrillville, towns down there. So I don't know what's going to be the outcome of that. I can imagine what the financials are on that, but I'm certainly open to anything that anybody has to fix that. Did you have a question? Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Of course. I'm good. I just wanted to know that. And if that's something, I mean, that we want to put in maybe a joint resolution supporting that and see how far it goes, at least if it gets to a hearing, we can go down and say exactly what Mr. Dean brought up. I mean, I think I'd be very happy to at least introduce it at this level. But Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm not too sure. I don't think there's one member up on of the school committee that was around. I believe it was around 2017 or 2018 that started the snow removal ordinance. And I still carry it in my briefcase to this day. And I have 3 conversations, if not more, 4 conversations every year with the mayor on this. And the first thing was being really aggressive and simply just saying, okay, let's bestow it upon all the sidewalks and fine anyone that doesn't apply. We'll see how far that goes. We won't get this, they won't do the sidewalks. The neighbors are going to start, the ones that hate the neighbors are going to start trying to, get them to get fined. And so then we moved it over to a discussion of potential plan. And that came out of a town hall meeting, which was held at the library, which I'm sure if you go back to, there's notes on it, where we had all vested. I don't know, Dr. Thorne, you might have been to that one. I don't know if that was your first stint or in between, but we talked about, addressing it. Okay, let's not do townwide. Let's focus on the schools. And again, good stuff came out of it, other stuff that came out that poses a problem. Equipment, manpower, obstacles. Even when the town was doing from Poppies all the way to CVS, they had to get off the sidewalk because of mailboxes. So it was a matter of trying to figure out. And I think for me, it was putting something forward that was going to work. Not just to put it forward and say, hey guys, okay, we got a snow ordinance removal plan, right? So that's on me and how I think. I'm always open to obviously, because we had a town hall meeting, to anyone who has their input and stuff that we can vote on as a town. It's not a my thing, but it is a my thing to hopefully this be my last term to get something passed, because it's the one thing other than the park that was built in my neighborhood that I have been holding on to for a long time. So I'm more than welcome to accept any emails, input, go back to look at the town hall notes, see what you get out of that, and we can put something forward on behalf of the town and for the safety of the kids. Knowing that this is a plan for your typical snowstorm. When we have exceptional snowstorms like we just did, or what we did in 22, or going back to 2015, where like Worcester had 180 inches and we saw some of that, like we didn't know where to put the snow. Like there's exceptions to that, but I believe there's some sort of happy medium ground that we can all agree upon so that residents are taken care of, the kids are safe, and we can just sort of keep living our lives in harmony. So just to bring it to all your attention, that's something that has been dear to me. So I'd be any input you guys want to throw my way, I'd be all ears. So thank you.
Thank you. Council, Mr. Dean, did you want to go before I was going to move over to Council Sweet, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, not to date myself, but I'm sure everybody here remembers that I think it was the Reagan administration that passed the seatbelt law. And for years and years and years, there was no fine for not wearing your seatbelt, but it was still a law. And a lot of people did it just because it was a law. And I sympathize and empathize with the people that can't get out and, and clear their sidewalk. I think we'll have a lot of residents that go out and clear the sidewalk because it's an ordinance, even if there are no penalties for the ordinance. And, there's nobody knocking on your door making you go out and do it. There'll be a lot more, I think, than currently do it. And then the town workers or whoever's going to take up the slack would have a lot less snow to remove if, let's say 50% of the people knew it was an ordinance and they went out and cleared it. I mean, that's a lot more than were cleared the first few days after the storm. I know now there's a lot more. Everyone's got their snowblower, a little tiny path, but a tiny path, is better than kids in the street. But I can understand and agree with what you're saying that, it's going to be tough to get people to abide by, a snow removal policy if it's not perfect. But, I think if we get something on the, in the ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. D. Ms. Sweet.
I hate to bring up such a place as New York City, but I do have quite a few friends in that area, and they have very strict ordinances for clearing the sidewalks. And it's a huge city filled with people of all different ages, and yet somehow they manage to get it done mostly. I think what often happens is people end up helping their older relatives or helping their neighbors or whatever. And I don't really think it's necessarily the right policy choice to put especially children at greater risk because some people might have difficulty shoveling. I think this is a very important issue, especially when it's widely recognized that we don't have the safest streets. And I would happily support a resolution to the State House. However, if the state doesn't do their job in a timely fashion, what are we going to do about it? Because the state is also responsible for clearing weeds and mowing and trimming a section of sidewalk along Nate Whipple Highway, say from like Diamond Hill to I'm going to forget the street name, so let's just call it like around that Abbott Run Valley area. And this year we had residents complaining, as everyone knows, we don't have many sidewalks in District 4 and a lot of people walk that area. And the weeds were so long that they were kind of onto the sidewalk. And then I checked with the fire chief. He was concerned about brush fire hazard. And we were all but begging the state to come out and do their job and trim this. So I do worry that just leaving it in the hands of the state isn't enough. And I do think that Cumberland is a great community and a lot of people are already going to help each other out. And like Mr. Dean said, if there's an ordinance, it's going to inspire people to do this. And the people that can't do it, the same way people go and help their neighbors with their walkway and their neighbors with their driveway because someone is older or injured or sick, they will be inspired to do that here. And it will make it easier for kids to get walking to school safely, which I think should be our utmost priority.
Thank you. Mr. Mativian.
Thank you. So like everyone else, I've also been swerving around people this week, including on the way here. So definitely, I think a discussion is warranted. But regarding the state bill, because I was looking at that today too, and I just looked it up again, 2042, it says with the exception of snow and ice removal. So they're talking about mostly maintenance.
Just maintenance straight up.
It actually says in it with
Didn't
the
it say
exception
plowing?
of snow and ice
Didn't
removal.
it say plowing ice from sidewalks?
No, it actually says with the exception of snow and ice may be the responsibility of the state.
Oh, okay, my fault. I misread that.
Yeah, I
apologize.
was hoping for that.
Yeah, I was
too,
hoping
but-
for, I also thought it was almost too good to be true because the cost for doing that for the state would be,
Right,
and that's
so,
why,
yeah.
so I apologize for that.
I actually just want to say also too, just kind of echoing what everyone else has said about the ordinance. But down here in District 1, we do have a very large population of students that do walk. Wednesday is a great example of what I had to do as a parent. I had to stop traffic on High Street to allow our kids to walk in the street because sidewalks were not attended to. Did I get a lot of unhappy pedestrians and drivers behind me? Of course, but it was worth it. But I think it is definitely important that we kind of get the ball rolling in some type of direction to kind of gain some kind of attention or attraction to kind of hopefully get this ordinance, listed and written in black and white.
Mayor, I noticed on the agenda that there is a sidewalk removal apparatus to,
Yeah, let me, so first of all, I want to recognize the job that was done. And I'm not generally, it's not generally my MO to do that, but that was a big storm. And we've been fortunate over the last few years to not have a storm like that. And I said it to Ethan, and I'm not sure if he's going to print it, but even with parking bans, and there seems to be this overriding theme that if we legislate fines, we can change behavior. And the reality is you'll change some behavior, and then you'll want to know why we're not tagging everybody who didn't change their behavior. And I have a real problem with that, to be honest with you, because same thing with a parking ban, and I'll get back to the question, Mr. President, but people who are unable to find a parking space are the people who are going to tag. Well, the reality is they can't find a parking place. And so we haven't, I saw there were some communities that identified lots for them to bring their car, and we did not do that. And and honestly, as I said to Ethan, I haven't thought about it. And, so shame on me for that, but the fact of the matter is haven't had to, right? So, but I have a real problem with people who, for some reason or other have off-street parking, can't get parking, and then, I somehow we're supposed to fine them and feel good about it, because I won't feel good about it. So, we did get ahead of it the last time and did a better job of notifying people, and it went better. Same thing with sidewalks, and I think a lot of people did. And do I think you should enact an ordinance? Probably. But the reality is all those communities, and Mr. Dean spoke about Warwick, they picked a priority list of sidewalks to clear. So all I'm saying is that, hopefully it won't be me. It'll be someone else sitting in the seat. But if you're going to pick a priority list, what about the other streets. Who's more important? Which sidewalk is more important? And how many of those communities actually enforce it? Because they don't want to enforce that ordinance, right? We're hoping to have an ordinance and then people will comply. When the reality is we all have to pitch in a little bit. Maybe we have to let that car go by. Maybe we have to wait a little bit longer at the bus stop. Maybe we have to pitch into the neighbor. Yeah. So let me go back. I thought the same people who, by the way, who are plowing the roads are the same people who you want to clear the sidewalks, right? And when they're out that long, then it's just not feasible. Now you can make it feasible. It will have a budgetary impact, and that's part of why we're here tonight, right? So, and it is within the powers that be to identify priorities. So, but you can't have them on call and think you're just going to hit the button and they're going to show up, right? You're going to have to add FTEs. You're going to have to add equipment. And is it important? Absolutely. And if that's what you want to do, then the powers that be will execute what you want it to be. But I thought everybody did on the town side did a really good job, and we did hire a vendor who did an outstanding job. Doesn't look like it snowed on some portions. So we recognize the importance of it. My other comment will be the walking distances that are established at the school level are not to be depicted as safe walking distances. They are bus route, that they determine the bus routes. So if you don't think the streets are safe, you could bring those walking distances down to zero. They'll have a budgetary impact because now you have to bus people. But I do think it's important for people to recognize that when you establish the walking distances, you're not saying that that's a safe distance to walk. That's not what you're saying. You're saying we're not bringing you a bus. So that's an important point. I know it's in the details, but that's what that is. So, as I said, do I think that we should have an ordinance that everyone actually thought we did have, but we don't have? Probably. But I do think it would be very problematic because there are people who live where there's a sidewalk in front of their house just for the sake of if everyone had one, I'd probably feel better about it, right? But to go and give them a certain time frame, and then you're going to put people in a place of why did you enforce it over here and not enforce it over there, I think is problematic. So to your question, we did take efforts that are outside of the budgetary constraints to clear some sidewalks. We did the best we could. We had overtime on the highway department using the machinery that we have, and and chipped away at that. In a perfect world, we would do more, and if that is the desire, we'll execute that desire. But in my heart, I do feel that there is a situation where if when it snows like that, and you have what happens with the guy that shovels that sidewalk and the state comes down and knocks it back in on Mendon Road, which happened to the school department. Are they supposed to go out and do it again? I hope you don't want me to tag them, because I'm going to have a hard time. Now, if you want to do it 2 years, 11 months, a week, and a few hours later, I'm good with that. But I'm going to have a problem with that. But maybe it does incentivize people. I don't know if it does or it doesn't. There were a lot of people I saw that cleared the sidewalks. Maybe it wasn't school for a couple of days. I honestly, was it perfect again? No, it was not perfect again. Was it pretty good? I think it was more than pretty good. I really do. I could be wrong. So, but we do have an item on the docket, and we will have other items on the docket, because the reality is we're not fully equipped with some of the widths of the sidewalks and some of the impediments that are in those sidewalks in some areas of town. And, can we do better at that? Yes, we can do better at that. If you want to fund that and you want to tell us to fund that, we'll fund it. And we'll try to do better. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Sweet, Council Sweet.
Just to clarify, I think that we did a great job clearing snow, especially when you look at some other communities. But I also sort of agree with, some of the idea Counselor Shaw had and Mr. Dean had, that if we did, even without fines, have an ordinance just to encourage it, it makes sense because then we're not putting that burden, we're not incurring a cost. We're saying, hey, get out and do this. And maybe there's even some way that, school, like kids could get, credit for helping out if they, shoveled a neighbor that, needed help or something. So maybe there's a more creative community-based solution that's not so money-oriented, that does kind of leave this with individual homeowners. And I think it's something we should explore, but I really don't want to spend money on it because I think the town already had a lot. It would be better if they had less to do and didn't have to do all the sidewalks too. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else on this item? Madam Chair?
Yes, I agree. I mean, I think I started my comments by saying that the town did a great job and that they were out there doing that. And I wasn't advocating for any more budget. That's why I said ordinance that didn't have any teeth. Just something to, there are a lot of rule followers out there. I'm not one of them, but there are a lot of rule followers out there that will just do it because it's on paper. And, they might be out there swearing at people when the state comes by and knocks it back in, but, they'll start back up again and do it. But I agree, yeah, that would be an enormous Herculean undertaking for the town to do that on their own, and maybe not even possible with the manning that we have. But yeah, I agree, ordinance if possible.
Thank you, Mr. D.
Anyone else in the school committee? Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to next item for both the town council and the school committee. I'll ask for public comment if anyone in the chamber would like to address the council and school committee on any topic they'd like. To state your name and address for the record. Is there anybody joining us virtually? Okay. Madam Chairwoman.
Can I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Bacon. Second by Ms. Shea. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes 5-0. Ms. Smith and Ms. Feather are absent, and the school committee joint meeting adjourns at 7:18 p.m.
Thank you, and I will also, but I do want to thank you coming down for, as always, for the lively discussion. We're all trying to do the best we can for the people we represent, so thank you again. I will take a motion to adjourn. So moved by Councilor Shaw, second by Councilor McGill. All in favor to adjourn, say aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned at 7:18. Thank you again.